About 5 or 6 months ago, as of this recording, Barbara Streisand, as you may have heard, released her autobiography, which weighed in at about 600 pages, 800, I don't know, something like that. It was big. But she went out to promote it, and she went on a bunch of outlets and did interviews. And I saw some clips of those, one of which I think was on Howard Stern, where she started talking about when she became famous, which was in the 60s. That's really when she blew up. And she mentioned that this was the same time, and she thought it was interesting that this was the same time the Beatles became famous and Bob Dylan. And they all kind of came up together but in different areas but in different circles. And she talked about how she heard the Beatles and Bob Dylan for the first time. They're both very popular, but she didn't get it. She didn't understand what all the excitement was about. She said she does now, but she didn't then. And I think it's worth noting if you're an artist, because Barbra Streisand was a musician first and then an actress. I mean, she was a very good actress pretty early on, but she really was a musician from just, I think, childhood. And so obviously music through her voice specifically was just in her bones. But she still grew up listening to different types of music, I think. So the Beatles grew up listening to Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard. And, Bob Dylan grew up idolizing Woody Guthrie. But, Barbra Streisand, she was listening to Judy Garland and all the great chantreuses of the stage. Very different types of music, which meant she had a different expectation for what a song was. If you're an artist, you're trying to meet an expectation when you create your work of art or when you sing. And you can't think of a different, when you think about how Barbra Streisand sings and how Bob Dylan sings, totally different expectation. He does not do what a singer's supposed to do if you sing like Barbra Streisand, who can stand on a Broadway stage and shake the rafters, right? Very different expectation. And a lot of art has to do with expectation. And it's worth remembering that as you write your stories, create your art, you may create something that is different than what a lot of people expect. I know I'm going through it. I just finished a book which is a little different than I think what people would normally expect from the genre that I wrote it in. And that's okay. But you have to adjust to that. You can't get floored by the fact that other people won't get it. Because again, you have Barbra Streisand, who, knows music, like she knows music. And if someone had played the Beatles for her when she was 20 or 21 and not told her that they were selling 1 million records or who they were, and she just heard it, she might have thought, this will never go anywhere, because it didn't meet her expectation. And it wasn't what she was looking for. There was a certain experience she wanted from music. So as you go to tell your stories, you can't get too caught up in what other people expect a work of art to be. And when you show your stories to people, one thing you have to bear in mind is what they expect a story to be. If you write memoir like I do, and the reader reads primarily suspense, they may not get where the fun is in your story, and vice versa. If you prefer quiet literary stories, and then someone hands you a Lee Child novel, it might just not ring true to you, or again, you won't be able to sink into it the way you do the stories that you prefer. So what you have to do instead is focus on what you love about the story. That's your expectation of it. That is your expectation of it. And you have to ask yourself, as you tell those stories, does this meet my expectation for what I want it to be? And not call it done until it is. Does this turn me on? Does this get me excited? Does this satisfy me? That's the only question you can really answer, because no matter how well you write it, there are going to be people who don't get it. But if you can tell that story in a way that satisfies you, that meets your expectations, then like the Beatles or Bob Dylan, maybe not to the degree they did, but just like them, the people who are looking for it, who may not even know they're looking for it, they'll find it. And that's how you build an audience. Not by just meeting someone else's expectation, but by meeting yours. And by the way, yours is the only expectation you can meet. So it's a win-win. Yeah. Yes, it is. Listen, thanks for tuning in. Do appreciate it. If you like it, subscribe. It's a good idea. It's how you can always get this. And if you like it, say so. I do love to hear from you. So until next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.